Good morning. I have a journal page to share, and I also have, let's just talk about some business first, some Google business, which I know I'm personally tired of hearing about. I'm even more tired of dealing with, but it's got to be done. I just want to say that I'm still having some comment issues. One of the issues that I'm having that's really bugging me is that Google/YouTube has taken it upon itself to flag some of my comments as potential spam, and it puts them in this separate place. And then I can go and review those comments to see if they are indeed spam, and they're not. None of them have been. They've all been from y'all, from like my regular peeps. I don't know what made them think it's spam. And there's this little checkbox where you can, check it off and click accept to accept that comment as a good comment and not as spam, and it doesn't work. Like, nothing happens, and it's still stuck in the spam section. I can't respond to it. I can't move it out of the spam section. So there are several comments in there that are just sitting there, and I can do nothing about them at this point. So until I figure out what to do about that, and there's some other things too. Some I get email notifications of comments, and then I will click to go view that comment and respond to it, and it's not there. It has vanished into thin air. So I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, until all this gets worked out, just know that I am reading and responding to every comment that I see and am able to respond to. And if you don't hear back from me, it's either because your comment is floating around out there somewhere where I can't see it, or I didn't get it, or Google thinks it's spam, or whatever. So, I'm not ignoring anybody. It's just important for me to let you know that. Okay? Okay. Now, on to fun stuff. This is a page I did for, that journal page swap thing that I'm in. And November's theme was to do something for the 1950s. And I did a video, might have been the last one that I did, where I looked through all my stuff. The only thing I found were a couple of these movie posters, and I thought I would try to build on that and maybe do some kind of drive-in theme. And this is what I came up with, and I really have to say, I love this page. I love the way it turned out. It's really more collage than mixed media. The background, I don't know if you can tell. Okay, here's what I did. Let me go step by step. Here's what I did. I started out with, I had this piece of painted paper, and it's sort of, when I printed out all of the movie posters, and I just Googled just some horror and sci-fi movies from the 1950s, and just printed out their movie posters in just a little size, and it kind of made its own color scheme. It's very colorful and has lots of colors, but it's got kind of a specific shade or tone going on. And this page I felt would make a really good background for that, this painted paper. And it was a big sheet, so this is one half of it, and I put the other half on the front thinking that would be my backdrop. But I ended up finding so many fun movie posters. I wanted to use them all. Like, I couldn't decide. So I ended up actually covering up my painted paper, and that's okay because I like it. And it's very subtle, but you can see my background is some movie posters. This one is The Blob. This one is The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And over here we have the creature from the Black Lagoon. And then there's another one behind here that I even forgot. So, they ended up kind of covered up, but it's okay because it made me happy. And they were all very bright, like these, so to kind of tone them down and push them into the background, what I did was I glued them all down. I slapped a coat of Mod Podge on them, just regular matte finish Mod Podge, and then I, just took some gesso, very light. I used even a wet paper towel to put it on, and just a tiny little bit, because I didn't want it to look, I didn't want the background to look like it had been gessoed. I just wanted it to look muted. So I just took it and rubbed it all around. I know this would have been so much better had I filmed while I was actually going through the process, but I'm having issues with that because filming in my art room is difficult. During the day, it works. It's okay. It's not ideal. At night, it's impossible because the lighting in there is so bad. And that ended up being, when I worked on this, was late at night. And I couldn't even get a decent image to film, so I couldn't film it. I'm going to have to fix that and work on something because, you know, talking about it is okay, but seeing it being done is much better. I get it. So I'll try to work on that. Anyway, gessoed the background, you know, just to kind of wash it out a little bit, and went in around the edges with a black gelato, and, you know, just kind of did the smudgy thing. And then I took I think it was a dark gray pit pen and went along the seams here and there. So that was basically it. I did go back in after I was all finished with some more pit pens. Like over here, I added a little more turquoise because I lost some of the color, and I added a little bit more red up here because, you know, by the time I got through with the gesso and the gelato, you know, everything had kind of washed out. So I did go back in a few places and just pop the color out a little bit. And if you use a pit pen on top of a surface that has been coated with Mod Podge, it's you can just blend it really well while it's still wet, you know, before it dries. So, you know, I could just put a blob of red marker from the pit pen and do this, and it just blended beautifully. So there you go. So that was my background. Got that done. Printed out a couple of these I had. That was one of my inspiration pieces, and I think this one I already had. And the rest of these I printed out, I think. And this, I could actually include a soundtrack to go with this silly page, because the whole time I was working on it, and I spent probably 2 or 3 days, because, you know, I just worked on it at night and at odd times, but the song that kept going through my head constantly when I was working on this section was the opening song from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, you know, where the lips are singing, and that one line where she talks about Anne Francis stars in Forbidden Planet. Well, you know, every day I was looking at Anne Francis and Forbidden Planet, so I was singing that stupid opening song from the Rocky Horror Picture Show for like 3 days solid. All day, every day, constant. Because, you know, I kept feeding it. So I had that going on, and which actually maybe kind of helped, because it has that sort of, you know, cheesy, definitely not Rocky Horror similar, but it's still got that same kind of retro cheesiness. Excuse me. And so printed all these out. I found a picture online of a drive-in theater that I printed out, but by the time I got through sticking the movie poster on it and messing with it, I discovered I could have just used a piece of plain paper. You know, that was kind of a waste of time because you can't even tell. And behind it, it's got 4 popsicle sticks for the screen stands, because, you know, back in the day they were on a wooden like stilts almost, a frame, and I wasn't really sure where I was going with the whole arrangement at that time, so I put those under there. And this around the edge, I used a gray one of these gel pens, or a souffle pen, and so I just did gray around the edge and then outlined it in a little bit of a white gel pen. So that was my drive-in screen. And then I found this graphic of the couple in the car. I think I had showed this one before, and the guy right here, you can see where I cut his hand off. It's because his hand is holding a baby bottle, and there's a baby in one of those hook-on bassinets, so he's feeding his baby in the back seat while they're watching the movie. Yeah, the baby just wasn't working for me. I didn't feel like that the baby needed to see Forbidden Planet, so I just whacked it off and left a little bit of his arm there, so it looks like he's kind of got his arm around her. And I found another picture. In fact, I think it was the picture that had this tray of drive-in food. I think it also had this, this is one of those little drive-in movie speakers next to it. And it was on like a bright blue 1950s car. And I just cut those out and stuck them on my car. I had to reverse this one because it was facing the other way. But I just did a mirror image and printed it so that it would go on this side of the car. And cut out the little piece of the window. The original image did have part of there was a movie screen on the original image, and it had it showing through here, so I cut it off, and I even stuck a piece of acetate in there so it'd be like a windshield. And then on the arrangement, I just decided that I wanted, you know, the couple watching the movie, and then the posters kind of just cascading out of it, just showing different 1950s excellent cheese. So I was really happy with how this turned out. And the last thing that I did was the letters. I knew I wanted drive-in Saturday night, and when I got to this point, my soundtrack shifted. I was no longer singing the Rocky Horror Picture Show song. I had nothing but the Bay City Rollers going through my head day and night. You know the one, S-A-T-U-R-D-A-Y, night. You know, that one, constantly, over and over and over. So fortunately, it only took me a couple of days to work that out the way I wanted it, so I could get rid of that brain worm. But what I did was I found a font. Okay, I should confess, I'm a little bit of a font whore. Can I say that? I think I did. Because I've got like, I don't know, I may be up to 4,000 fonts on my computer. I just really, really love fonts, and I like to have lots to choose from. And every time I see another one, I download it. I never pay for them. They're all free fonts, but I got a lot of them. And I wanted something kind of drive-in, you know, marquee movie looking. I looked for like a picture of a drive-in movie marquee, but I didn't find anything that would work, so I just ended up finding this font. You're going to want to know what it is, aren't you? Shoot. Okay, hang on just a second. Let me find the name of the font. Okay, I found the fonts. I'm just going to stick this here. I don't know that you can even read it, but it says, this one at the top, the drive-in one, okay, fonts, if you download fonts, you know what I'm talking about. Fonts sometimes come with there's a family, a font family, and within that family there's several different fonts, right? This one is called Budmo, B-U-D-M-O. That's the font family name. So if you're going to look for this font, that's the name that you would look for. And in the Budmo family, there's two fonts. There's Jiggler and Jigglish. Jigglish is just a reverse of Jiggler. This is actually Jiggler. It's brown, it's black with, these were white dots. And then Jigglish is reversed. It's white with black dots. So, now I've totally confused you. This is called Jiggler from the Budmo font family, and I downloaded it from Dafont, DAFONT.com. So you can go to Dafont.com and get it. You can use Urban Fonts. You can, wherever you find free fonts will probably have it. So I printed it out in big, and then I cut it out, and the little dots were white, and I used one of these, again, the souffle pens. I used a yellow souffle pen and just colored them in yellow because, just because I wanted to. And then stuck them down and outlined them with a white gel pen. And the white gel pens that I used on here were these two. This is they put white letters on the barrel of a white pen. I mean, come on. Oh, here we go. It's on the cap. It's the Pilot Choose. This is the Pilot Choose, CHOOSE gel pen in an 07 size. So I use that one sometimes, and occasionally I picked up this one, which is let me read here. A Pentel Hybrid Gel Grip pen in a 1.0 size. And both of these are good pens. I have no problems using a gel pen on top of a Mod Podged background. You know, sometimes you'll run into problems if you've got a painted background and you haven't put anything over it. Sometimes your gel pen will skip and do weird stuff. If you Mod Podge it, problem solved. Your gel pen will work, or it should if it's a good gel pen. So, outlined it in white. Then came Saturday Night. This one, the font for this one, okay, again, confusing here. I downloaded it from Fontdinerdotcom. And if you go to Fontdinerdotcom, click on the thing on the little bar that says, I think it says free silverware. I think that's what it is. It's got kind of a little clever setup there. If you go into free silverware, that's where all of their free fonts are. Because it's a commercial font site, you can buy fonts from them. But they have some really cool retro fonts that are free. This one is called Fontdiner.com, like the whole word spelled out, Sparkly. And there's a couple of others that are under this Fontdiner.com font family, but this one is Sparkly. And it had a sparkly here, and then I think maybe one here and one here. I don't know. You know, there's little sparklies over some of the different letters, but I didn't feel that I needed all those. I just used the one. So I got that font. Now, having a font, that's great. Getting it onto your journal page can be tricky. There's several different ways you can do it. My first thought was print it out, or put it in my, you can put it in any word processing software, reverse it, print it out, transfer it. That's easy, right? The only problem I have with that is that, number one, transfers are hit or miss. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I'm on a Mod Podge background here, which can sometimes that can wreak havoc with a transfer. I was not willing to risk messing up what I had already, this background that I'd already worked so hard on. I wasn't willing to risk nerfing it up with a transfer. So my second thought was, I'll just print it out, cut out the words, and put them on there. And so I did. And I did 2 or 3 different techniques with them to try to figure out, the best way to get them to look. It looked really bad with the white paper showing, and I thought, well, I'll just print it on tissue paper, because that usually works well, to print on a tissue paper, Mod Podge it on there, and the tissue paper virtually disappears. But that really wasn't, that wasn't what I wanted either, because that looks a little bit too, it usually ends up looking a little bit too faded out, or muted, or whatever I'm trying to say. It just wasn't, the whole idea wasn't making me happy. So I printed it out and tried coloring in the background, to make it kind of coordinate, and then I was just going to stick it on there. And that was looking okay, but it was clear to me that my letters needed to be white. So I needed some way to get these letters onto this page without this background in a way that would make me happy without transferring it. My next thought was carbon paper. Obviously, I haven't used carbon paper in years, but for some weird reason I have some. So I got me out a sheet of carbon paper, put it between my letters and the thing, and started tracing over them. It was not showing up at all. at all. I don't know if it was the Mod Podge background or what, but carbon paper was not working. I thought, my next thought was, okay, maybe I can freehand it. I'll just look at it and freehand it. Got me a little pencil, started trying to freehand it, and immediately saw that that would take me weeks to get it just like I wanted it. So that wasn't working, but I did notice that the pencil showed up quite nicely on the Mod Podge. You know, it wasn't really blatant, but if you kind of turn the page and the light hit the pencil mark, it showed up really well. Then I remembered when I was in grade school, and my dad helped me with some kind of, I had to make a poster or something for some project, and I wanted these animals on it. And I found these pictures of these animals and wanted on there. They were in a book. I couldn't cut them out, and I couldn't draw. So he learned me a way to do it. What you do is, you take your picture, of your whatever that you're wanting to put on there, in this case my Saturday night, and I made it bigger. After I printed that out, I saw that I needed it bigger. So I just printed it out bigger, I cut it out. Take your pencil and you just really make homemade carbon paper. I just took a soft lead pencil, colored really thoroughly, just covered this whole back with pencil marks, right? And then laid it down on here, made sure it didn't move, and I used my white gel pen to trace it, just to make sure, you know, so that I could see where I'd already been. And then I just started tracing. And when you press down to trace, the pencil mark acts as a carbon, and you can see it on here. So I basically just traced my font onto my page. Problem solved. I was so excited. After that, I thought I would just color it in with white gel pen and be done, so I started doing that, and I was not happy because, you know, it was not, I was getting pen lines, it was not flowing and covering completely like I wanted it to. So I went back with some of this ink, this Liquitex acrylic ink in titanium white that I snagged off a clearance rack, you know. I used that, and then just one of these, oh, where's the brush I used? Yeah. One of these teeny paint brushes, you know, that's like painting with an eyelash. Yeah. Then went in there, and it wasn't nearly as tedious as I thought it was going to be. It wasn't bad at all. So I just painted over it with white ink and let it dry and traced around it with a fine, actually just this pen I used for the black lines, this hybrid. This is my favorite pen in the universe. Okay, have fun. This is a Pentel Hybrid Technica, is what it's called. And I have a hard time finding these. I get them at Texas Art Supply, and that's really about the only place I can find them, at least reasonably priced, because it has a little skinny point on it. So that's what I use to go around Saturday night. And then I just used my little souffle pen to put the little yellow dot in the middle of that star, which didn't look exactly like that on the font. I changed it a little. And when it was dry, I went over everything with Mod Podge so that there would be no smudging, and called it done. So there you go. It really was a simple journal page. I just, really the hardest part was figuring out how to get Saturday night on there. But then once I did, and I was so glad I remembered that little trick, because you can use that to trace anything. You know, if you don't have carbon paper handy, or if for some reason carbon paper doesn't work, like it did with me, just color the back with a pencil and trace it on there. So, there we have it. This little sucker's going into the mail today to its intended recipient, and then I've got one more to do, and I already know the theme, so I can get it done, and then that's it. That'll be a year's worth of swaps for this particular group. So, that's all I have. The end.